Good evening, everybody, and welcome to this week's call. We're on chapter 7 of the Game of Life, and this chapter is entitled Love. And apparently tonight, with all the technical difficulties, as Priya said, somebody doesn't want us talking about this chapter. So, we do every week. We like to see what's new and good. So, ladies, whoever wants to go ahead.
Okay, where are we going? About the chapter? Are we talking about the chapter? Because we have limited time tonight.
Yes, thank you. My program director has said we have to keep on point.
Yes, I think that would be a good idea. So the chapter is about love tonight. It was an interesting, some of the stories I found in this chapter had some interesting takes on them. But I definitely do, I do align with the messages. So the first, I think, was the story about love and what love really is. And it's the absence of fear, the absence of attachment, so to speak, as well, which is something that we've discussed in the past about being unattached to outcomes and to behaviors. So I think that's sort of where things started off in this chapter.
Right, and then she also goes that it's joy and the joy of giving. So
yeah, I align with that very well. To be candid and honest, I did have a relationship before I married my husband where it was just something that I felt like this person was better suited to someone else. And although I had very strong feelings for him, when he did meet someone else, I was really happy because I thought, this is great. I feel like when you care about someone, you care for their happiness, and what's going to serve them best. And sometimes, who we maybe feel like we have feelings for and how those relationships pan out, don't always mean that we end up together with someone. And I also think too that some people hold on to people and they prevent them from ending up with the people who they really, would benefit being with in terms of a relationship, and also themselves finding someone else that would be more suited to them. So I notice that a lot when I do marriage coaching and things like that, where people don't want to let go and allow someone to grow to their fullest potential.
Well, I think that's because they're afraid they know that particular area, and so they're afraid to move to a different area because they know that area. But I agree with you. People hang on,
Yeah. And it's the fear, right? Fear of being alone, fear of admitting, like feeling like, rejected or repelled or what have you. So there's all those fears that come into play with it.
Right. Wasn't it Abraham that says you should reevaluate a relationship every like 10 years and see if it still is viable for both parties and go from there, which I think is a good idea, but doesn't usually happen that way.
Yeah.
well, right, and usually because it's an outside circumstance that gets involved, and unfortunately in relationships, it's usually about money. That's the number one fought over thing. Would you agree with that, Priya? Carolyn?
I don't know. I think that money becomes one of the symptoms or one of the catalysts of where the demise is addressed. But I think that what ends up happening is that when there's a breakdown in a relationship, particularly if it's a married relationship or where people cohabitate and share a space together, that you start to get into survival mode in the sense of like, oh, I got to look at me. I got to focus on me because I'm not happy. So I have to. So then you start turning to finances and using resources to get to the happy. And generally speaking, when you're in that space, you guys, two people will not have the same mindset around how to use their resources or how to make, invest in the future and what's important and what's not important. So I think that comes up a lot. I also see people get into relationships, which is why I do a premarital boot camp, where they don't ever discuss how their resources will be used and what are the priorities about that. How do you do banking? Do we do joint banking? Is your money my money? Is my money your money? Like, how does that all work? So I find that a lot of that stuff comes into play when we're talking about the money side of things. But I think from the love side of things, that it usually what ends up happening is one person or the other is unhappy, and so they're expecting the other person to fix it, and that is not love, according as well as what she's saying here.
Correct. Because it's unselfish love, which
Yeah.
goes back to what you had just said. If you truly love somebody, you care for their well-being and their happiness, even if that is away from you.
Yeah.
And
And that's the thing that also I feel when it comes to love is that, you know, when you love someone, when you really love someone, you don't ever want to see a tear fall from their eye or a moment of stress in their life. Like, you just don't, because you wouldn't want that for someone that you love. But oftentimes when we're out of alignment with ourselves, we get into that space and we forget about those things. So then it becomes, I see a lot of people wanting to be right, or to be in that place of, oh, you know, it's about proving my point or being even understood. And so sometimes it's just a matter of saying, like, that doesn't even matter at this point in time.
agreed. Carolyn?
I'm agreeing with all of it. I think, you know, I've heard the statement, you get married in church, but you get divorced in court. So again, to your point that, you know, money does come into it. It's a legal binding, you know, if you're in a marriage, it's a legal binding contract that you're signing. And so, you know, I think a lot of people, you know, don't take the time to find out who they are and what they, but then people change too over the years. You know, it's unrealistic to everybody grow just along the same path. I mean,
And
I think it's unrealistic.
yeah, and I think that that's one myth that people enter into marriage with, that is like, there's a saying out there, just like you're saying, is there's a saying that a man marries a woman hoping she'll never change, like a woman marries a man hoping he'll change, and a man marries a woman hoping she'll never change, right? So
Right.
I think there can be an element of that, but also you cannot anticipate what somebody's going to change into, like what's going to, as they evolve, how things unfold. What I see and what I encourage my couples and you know to do is to be in a space of, you don't have to be doing the same thing. You just need to be growing in your individual self and evolving. And as long as that is happening, then everybody's sort of staying in alignment with themselves. Where a lot of the breakdowns happen is when, you know, one party is out of alignment, or they both are to begin with, and then it starts to create conflict because there's no alignment anywhere going on. So we're off the rails all the time.
That and you have to, some people, they just don't have the same parameters. You know, everybody has to do the same thing, and that doesn't work either. You've got to allow space so that somebody can go, you know, if you don't have an interest in that direction, that's okay if you go that way, but I don't have an interest in that direction, so I don't want to go there. So, you know.
Yeah. Yeah. And
What
I've
do you
been in that
think?
situation before too, where, you know, you sometimes too, people are not comfortable with their freedom. So you say to someone, well, that's fine, go out. I get that you want to do that, and I would like you to do what you would like to do. I don't want to do that though.
Right.
So, you know, that's where sometimes it comes down to it as well, because certain people expect that when you're doing relationship, that we need to do everything together, or we only do these types of things with each other. So those are all things that I think come into play too, is, you know, really knowing who you are as best as you can before you start sort of meshing that with someone else.
Well, what about the flip side of that? You said, you know, well, if you want to do something, go ahead, but, you know, I don't want to do that. What about the case where, and I believe it happens pretty often, where somebody wants to do something, the other party doesn't want to, but then they choose to want to tear you down about it, or demean it, or, you know, try and persuade you not to do it either. What's your thought on that?
It's not love. It's not
Yeah,
love if you're not
I don't.
allowing someone to do what they want to do. And even if, I mean, even if they're doing it with somebody you don't particularly like, it's you know, you're allowing them to have their space to do what they want to do. And so, you know, and so you're just trying to control at that point, I think.
Right. So basically, just, I mean, you don't have to agree with the other person, but just be supportive by not saying anything.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, I think there's what ends up happening though is you have to know, people have to know their own boundaries and their own core values. You know, there are people who do things in the world that are illegal or harmful. And so in that context, do we want to say, well, you know, you should just let so and so go off and be a gangster mobster and kill people, or a drug dealer, and we should just be okay with it? So there's levels of knowing your own boundaries. And I think that when it comes down to love, it's really about having a love for yourself and understanding what that's like, and letting that be okay. Because I think what ends up happening is that oftentimes, you know, we look at the movies, you know, you get this whole, well, you complete me nonsense. And it's like, no, you came complete out of the womb. Like, that's not a thing. So it's recognizing, but that's the bill of goods we've been sold in this world, is around the expectations around romance and happily ever after and swept off our feet. And I think that happens a lot. It gets confused. We're not really taught love from a perspective of, you know, independence and growth and support of one another. We're sort of taught about, it's like, well, you give up everything for this person. And oftentimes where people interpret that is in giving themselves up. And I've seen, how many times have you heard someone say, I lost myself along the way. I don't know who I am anymore because I've fallen into this or I've fallen into that. And it's one partner or the other. So I think that it really comes down to, you know, having that self-love and having those types of boundaries on both parts, and letting people, getting into relationships and doing it from a place from like, hey, you take care of you and I'm going to take care of me. And then like, we'll come together and have some, and do some fun stuff. Or I'm always there to support. But I think, you know, when it comes down to it, this is where you have to let people choose for themselves and let them follow through with where their actions and choices take them, and then be there to help support when maybe things, if they go wrong, or be there to celebrate when things go right. But I feel like sometimes people get too intertwined into it too deeply, and it becomes, when one person falters, then it's like the whole thing is a mess now.
Exactly. And but don't forget too, a lot of us, you know, we're raised to believe in circumstances. So like, if we're together, you know, you need to make me happy. It's your job to make me happy. I'm looking at you doing this, I'm not happy. But when you do this, and Abraham talks about this, you know, you can't do enough to make enough people happy, because there's always going to be something, because it's not your job. But we're always raised in this area of conditions, you know, with our parents. You act like this, the parents are happy. And then school is the same way. You do
So is
your
work. So is work.
right.
So is politics. So is any, like, you know, it's all about people
But it's
pleasing.
all false. It's all false.
It is false. Absolutely. I agree with you. Like, even, you know, with my husband, I was like, if you want to do, when we first got together, I said, if you want to do one thing, recognize you can't make me happy. That's never going to happen. That's my job. I'm responsible for that. I take that on, and I don't choose to like leave that out to someone else. Because, you know, when we talk about happiness as well, you could come to me tomorrow and bring me flowers, and I'll be like, whoa. And then you could come to me on Wednesday and bring me the same flowers. I'm like, I don't need these. I already have flowers. Now I don't have another vase. What am I going to do with these? And I'm like, well, I brought them yesterday and you were so happy. So who knows? I could have slept less. Like, there's so many factors that comes into play as to how somebody and where they're vibrating on a daily basis, that it is. And so many people run into this issue where they're exhausted trying to make someone else happy versus loving your own self and being there to support one another in the journey and share the experience of life.
Exactly. I told somebody today, I said, you know, I'm just, you know, I told you what's going on this week. And I said, you know, I'm actually excited about going Thursday because I'm done with the drama with everybody. I mean, I love you, but you know, you start getting into the drama, you know, go do your thing. That's fine. I mean, I'm just kind of out of it then. And then we can come back and revisit it later when, you know, because it does just get a little crazy. That's why I love this one story. And I mean, we were talking before Carolyn got back on, you were talking about you were in a group with mostly women. And I've talked to a lot of ladies and they feel this too, like, you know, oh, that man did me wrong, so I'm not going to wish him well. And that's what she was talking about in this story. You're not loving him, you're hating him.
Yeah.
And you're
And
bringing it back on yourself.
I also feel like love is not something you turn off. Like it doesn't, because to me, it's almost as though it's not, it can shift, it can change. And I've been married, no secret. I'm on my third marriage, so I've had 2 divorces, and there have been tumultuous times during those things unfolding. One, for me personally, I've never been to court for a divorce. We've written all of our divorce agreements by ourselves. And I think that there's a level of, one of my ex-husbands versus the other, I have a little bit better of a relationship with, but there's never, if my first husband ever called me and said, oh, I'm stranded, or I got a flat tire, I would never say, like, screw you, buddy, good luck with that. Like, roll it around and call your new wife. I would never because I think there's a level of, too, you have to look at, where does that come from, where you can turn around and say, well, I don't, it's one thing to say, I don't want to do relationship with you anymore. I don't have those romantic type feelings, but to not love somebody, for me, I feel like the love was not a true love if it ends.
Well, it was conditional.
Yeah. So then to me, then it's not just love, because based on this, no man is your enemy, no man is your friend, every man is your teacher, like all of that kind of stuff. So there's nothing really, there is no being disappointed or being hurt or all that kind of stuff. You can go through that, and we do through different things. You have to look at, where is that coming back to you?
Exactly.
Well, and people get in relationships before they're ready to get into relationships too, and think it's going to be, permanent, and it just isn't. So, it's just a matter of finding who you are and where you are in life,
Yeah.
Well, that's a good word that you use, Carolyn, permanent, because I learned something from a mentor a long time ago, that everything is temporary.
Right.
Everything. Even, a marriage, even if you're together from high school till the day one of you passes away, it was still temporary.
Right. And everything changes. That's the only thing you're guaranteed. Things will change. Even if you stay in a relationship, things will change.
Right. And Priya touched on it earlier, a lot of people though, and I was one of these people, stay in the relationship, and you said it, Carolyn, because it's familiar. It's comfortable, even though it's the best thing to go.
Right.
Or it's the best thing to let them go, or whatever it is. But, it's like, well, it's too much of a hassle, got to go through all that. It's just.
Well, and changes are gradual. It's not like today I love you passionately and tomorrow I hate you passionately. There's just a very small gradual change that you don't perceptibly see along the way, and then all of a sudden one day you're down 10 years down the road going, how did we get here? I just don't know.
It's like gaining weight. You're like, where did this happen?
Really, it was
Right.
only a pound a day.
It's only a donut a day.
What the heck?
That can't hurt you.
It's one of those things, though. I think that that's where I'm saying, when it comes to love, and when she's talking about love and what it really is, it's an experience. So if you can get in a mind space of, what is this person coming from? And if you're enjoying, it's almost like you're here to play the game of life. And who do you love playing it with? Because there are going to be ups and downs in the road, right? Like even yesterday, we're clearing out the basement. My husband and I just like over how to do it. And he stomped off and he came back and I was like, are we friends again now? And he said, we're always friends. I said, oh no, honey, we're not always friends. We're always husband and wife. We're not always friends. So it's like, because those things happen, but I feel like it's one of those things. And like I said, I've done this 3 times. So I feel as though I have a little bit of like expertise on the subject of marriage and not doing marriage. And I will say this, I think that any marriage can find its way to back to a place where it is in alignment. Any marriage, I don't care how bad it is. I have coached a couple over a weekend where I was there on the Friday for the wife to tell the husband she had an affair and she just wanted someone there. That couple is still together, even though we did go through that. So I think there is a level of it, but I also think that, going to it, using an Abraham phrase, the path of least resistance sometimes to alignment is to walk away. And if that's the path, there's no right or wrong about it. That's just the path. There's no, if you can't get in there. But I know that one of the things they'll say is the only common denominator between you and your next relationship is you. So if you haven't aligned yourself and kind of worked out the kinks in what you were activating in this relationship with this current person, it will come along in some other shape or form. And I see it so often where I'll be coaching someone and they'll say, well, does this remind you of anything? Oh no, he's way different than the last guy. He's wonderful. He's this and he's that. And then about 3 weeks later, like, it's the exact same thing. And then I'm like, yeah, wasn't I telling you? But because when we first get into something, we want to look for the positives, right, in the relationship, because we're looking for where is it good, and then we keep focusing on that until we get into, as Carolyn said, that comfort zone again, where we sort of stop aligning ourselves and bringing our best self to the table and get comfortable, and then we get sloppy.
Exactly, and that leads right into this next paragraph that I highlighted, that suffering is not necessary for man's development. It is the result of violation of spiritual law, but few people seem able to rouse themselves from their soul sleep without, I gotta scroll, without it. When people are happy, they usually become selfish, and automatically the law of karma is set in action. Man often suffers loss through lack of appreciation. And that's one thing we learned in the science of getting rich as well. Appreciation. I mean, Abraham talks about it all the time. That is one of the biggest things, is gratitude and appreciation.
Mm-hmm.
And
yeah, I don't think that a lot of people rise in the morning, look next to them, and think of what they appreciate. They go back to like, oh, there she is again, or there he is again. Here we go again. Another, oh, look at her face, or look at his face. Oh, he's cranky, he's grumbling already. Here we go. I personally, when I wake up in the morning, I do not engage my husband. I don't even make eye contact with him until I have lined myself up. And sometimes that's 10 minutes in the morning. Sometimes that's the afternoon. And we just have that understanding because there's no point.
Well, it's better probably that you don't, just because there is a point. It's to get you centered to where you want to be. So there is a point to it.
Yeah, meaning because it has no bearing on what he's doing until I'm lined up, because that's for me. So I make sure that I sort of stay out of that until I'm lined up for whatever he's going to bring at me. It doesn't even mean, oh, I've looked at him and I've decided. It's just until I'm lined up, I don't even check in to see where he's at, because if I haven't lined up, I'm going to be impacted if I'm not ready for it.
right, and you may impact him as well. Because if you're not lined up, he might have been a good, what's that?
If he chooses that, sure, he might be.
Oh, chooses that. Oh, you came back down to the basement and you decided that we are going to do it my way, right? That's right. You came to your senses.
And I don't say anything. And that's the beauty of it. I find, when you go back to the story she told about, just let that guy go and just let it be and don't do anything about it. I learned that 100% this time around in marriages. Just don't. I just have my imaginary conversation with Matthew McConaughey or Idris Elba, and like, I think Matthew would do this if this was happening. And I stay there, and I'm telling you guys, it works because it takes the zing out of it being personal between him and I. And then it opens the vibration. And I get way nicer when I'm imaginarily dealing with Matthew McConaughey than I do if I'm trying to force myself into a better vibration with my husband.
Are you using subliminal suggestion to me? to push the issue to get him on the call.
No, I-
We're gonna start a new thing, WWMD. What would Matthew do? Hashtag WWMD.
But that's really what it comes down to. And that's what she's saying is it doesn't matter who it is, because if you get into that space where you recognize that everyone is your teacher.
Right.
So, it's like, okay, well, maybe this is teaching me, because I've seen myself go through things where I've held on to them or try to solve them through a different manner that doesn't serve me. So I just find getting back what allows me to get back into my alignment and what allows me to tap into the vibration of what I do want. And that doesn't come from manipulating other people or pushing them or trying to get back at them or seek revenge on them.
Well, we know that that doesn't work because that's just doing the same thing to yourself multiplied.
Well, that's where she talks about that law of karma.
Yes.
Right.
Yes, because it doesn't just come back to you. If you've wronged somebody, it's not necessarily just going to come back from that person. It's got to come back multiplied. So you're going to get it from all different angles.
Well,
But
because
not-
you're the vibration of it, yeah, and you
Yep.
sent it out. So when the vibration of what you sent out is matched, and depending on the intensity of it, it can hit you in multiple ways. And that's why a lot of times when I see people, they go, "Well, I wasn't even thinking about that anymore." Okay, maybe not, but look at what's happening. And isn't that the same energy that you were, emitting around the situation with your ex, girlfriend, boyfriend, husband, wife, whatever it is? Isn't that the same energy of it? So with the law of karma, it's not like, oh, you had revenge on an ex, so revenge is like, it's exact word for word literal. It's the energy of whatever it is you're putting out there towards someone, and then you will attract on that level of energy, whether it be from jealousy or whatever it is, So I think that that's important. And it's funny because once I did start looking at relationship from a space and a place of, what are you here to teach me? It was interesting because the one guy that I was dating, I used to get so like wound up when I would see him. And I realized for so many years or months, I used to think I was always anxious, and I attribute it to fear. It wasn't until I allowed myself to look at things differently that I recognized I was excited, because it's the same physiology. Anxiety and excitement will create the same type of reaction in your body. So that changed it. But also I being intuitive, I heard him say to me one day, "Gosh, won't you put your boundaries up so I can stop being such an a-hole? Because that's the lesson I'm here to teach you, is to stop putting up with crap." And when I didn't have a conversation with him about it, but when I did that, he did stop. And it really everything just shifted and changed. And it's like in the book, the one day he came back and he's like, I've never told you this, but I really wanted to tell you that I really love you and whatever. And I was like, okay, what's going on here? But it was unsolicited, but it's that letting go of the attachment. Because if I've got a string attached to you and I'm pulling and tugging at you, you're going to feel that. And you're going to want to pull and tug the other way if you feel like you're being led somewhere. And even if that's just vibrational or energetic, people feel that and they don't like it.
No, they don't. Carolyn?
Well, and until you let somebody know and tell them, they just are doing what they want to do. And you have to set up that boundary and say, hey, this is what I want to do. And you can do your thing. I'm not asking you not to do your thing, but you have to say, this is for me. I'm doing this for me. This is what I want to do. So you have to make it clear to them,
Yeah, you have to communicate, because so many times, we say something, or we might make a gesture, which wasn't a gesture, it was just a cramp. But, we say something, and instead of somebody else saying, well, when you say that, do you mean this? They just take the meaning for themselves and then get pissed off about it.
right?
And then you're sitting there like, what happened? You thought you were saying something genuinely good, but now somebody, it doesn't have to be a partner or a spouse, but now somebody is pissed off about it because they didn't get clarity.
Mhm.
Right. You need communication. That was a good word. You need to communicate on any level in any kind of relationship. It doesn't have to be as a partner or anything like that. It's just to have a good relationship, you need to have that communication.
Yeah, just to be clear, this, I know in this chapter, we're talking about a lot about like love relationships, like man and woman, or like a romantic relationship, but it's not necessarily that. Love is love. I mean, love for other humans, love for, your city, your whatever, it's all of that. It's not just
But the most important one is love for yourself.
correct.
You have to start there.
Because you cannot, what did she say? You cannot have something that you never gave away or something like that. So,
Yes. You can never receive what you have never given. Give a perfect love and you will receive a perfect love.
right. But see, and people just, I've had conversations this week with people. They just don't understand that. It's like Earl Nightingale said, the man that stood in front of the stove, give me heat and then I'll put the wood in. That's not how it works. You have to take you have to take the step first. I mean, even they say that in the Bible, God doesn't move until you move. You take a step towards me, I will move towards you. You don't move, I don't move. That's
But it's also vibrational, right? So, I mean, when she says, like, about what when she says, you can never receive what you have never given, give a perfect love and you'll receive a perfect love. It's basically saying, she says, when you send out real love will return to you either from this man or his equivalent. For if this man is not the divine selection, you will not want him. As you are one with God, you are one with the love which belongs to you by divine right. The thing is, again, if you're aligned with revenge, you cannot be aligned with love. And
Right.
so whether you love on a rock or you're like whatever it is, once you start to emanate that vibration of love, then it's going to come back to you. And it truly is this, because having been a coach for so many years, and I've coached people up into their 90s, you want to know what the one thing people always come to me and they're looking for, or one of the very few things that you can count, it's to be loved. It's to be loved. So it's like the lottery or an inheritance. Oh, I won $1 million. Okay, well, you said you want to win the lottery. I'm going to gift you an inheritance of $1 million. Are you going to say no? Because it's not a lottery win, and well, you had your heart set on winning the lottery, so sorry, you can take your inheritance and thank you. No. And honestly, when it comes down to it, and I tell people this all the time when it comes to love, is it's not going to matter to you when you're in that vibration of love and that person shows up. It doesn't matter who it is, because it's the feeling that you're after. It doesn't matter, because it is a divine light. She talks about the brotherhood in India, where they get up in the morning, they don't say good morning. It's the divine light in me salutes the divine light.
I salute the divinity within
you.
you.
Right, which is basically namaste, right? The light in me bows to the light within you. So it doesn't, we have these things and they're great, shells and bodies and things like that, and whichever one floats your boat, go for it. But it's basically, and Abraham speaks to this as well, whatever you get out of a relationship, it's you activating that within someone else. So we have the vibration of it not being there and the vibration of it being there, whichever it is, something you want or something you don't want. So if it's coming, the idea is to look at where are you aligned with the thing that you don't like? Because that person is teaching you through that behavior.
Right. And it's like, I love you, but you are just a cooperative component at the moment in my manifestation of a good relationship.
Right.
Or a bad relationship.
So look at the drama you were talking about. So if you're seeing drama in someone, isn't there a part of you somewhere that's activating the drama?
Exactly.
Well,
Exactly.
I found that people that have that drama, they come to you because you are more of an even keel, and they can sit there and suck, they suck their calmness out of you is what they're doing. And so you walk away going, oh my God, I am so exhausted talking to that person.
So,
And they feel so much better because, oh, I feel so much better talking to you. And you're going, well, yeah, you took a lot of energy from me to calm yourself down. I have found that in people when they
yeah.
come.
So, and that's the thing. I mean, well, because people who take energy usually attract people who give energy, right?
Yeah.
So when you look at that, and when you think about what she's saying here, if you give drama, you'll love people who take the drama and return to you calmness. Who wouldn't love that?
Yeah. The
So
person who's
people
calm.
who do drama will also attract other people who do drama, but they won't like them because they're like, no, no, drama is my thing. I bring, like, it's like a potluck. Who's good at macaroni? Who's good at lasagna? So you'd be like, call so and so because they're great. I've got the drama. I'll bring the drama, and you bring the calm. And they always want to bring the drama. If they don't want to go to the party where everybody's good at bringing the drama, you're going to end up with a whole thing of potato salad. If everybody brings potato salad, then that's no party.
Yeah.
Right. And that's what people do. They bring the drama to you, and then you turn to them and say, well, would you like to do something about it? It's like, no, I just want to tell you about what's going on. In other words, I don't want to fix anything. I just want you to listen to my woes.
And I'll be back next week and tell you again the same drama and the same situation because they don't want to fix it.
And this is why I became a coach.
Right. And that's, again,
Go
right
ahead.
into the
There you go.
next.
But also that's why therapists sit there and listen to the same thing over and over and over again, because I don't want to hear, let me help you change your story. If you let's because ultimately people don't want to live in that's out of alignment with their inner being. So it's just what ends up happening when someone who's dramatic meets someone who's calm is it allows them some space to get into alignment, and then they leave feeling better.
Exactly.
So I just learned to allow those people to do their thing, but maintain because you'll know your dramatics when after a while you'll sense them, even if they're not your regular circle. And so you just have to be aligned and just allow yourself to just flow what you can, and don't take anything from them that you don't want to have to process later.
Yeah.
And then she's talking about that no man can attract money if he despises it. And I say, or anything else, or love, or abundance, or anything. Many people are kept in poverty by saying money means nothing to me. And I have contempt for people who have it. And how many times have you talked to people and they've said that? Not exactly like that, but they said, well, with me, money's not that important. And then they wonder why they don't have it. Because they're running around and they're sincere about that. And I mean, it's not hateful or anything. It's like, well, money's not important. Like the lady said, marriage wasn't important. It just.
Right. So it's not there. I mean, if it's not important, it doesn't come to you.
Yeah, and then don't be surprised when it disappears.
Right.
But for some people, that can just be no resistance to it, to a lack of no money, so they can actually get money as even with that mindset. Does that make sense? So money's not important, so it doesn't bother me not to have it. It's not a thing that I chase. So because you ever see people that they're like, how did they get that? They don't even care about blah blah blah, and because they have no resistance to the lack of it either.
Well, I'm not talking about people that have been manifesting. I'm talking about usually people that are not on the financial spectrum. A lot of times they say, well, it's just money's just not that important. You know, and it may not be. I mean, they might have a good family life, and that's excellent. That's all part of balance and everything. But unfortunately, financial things are part of balance too. I mean, your finances are part of that circle of life. And Waddles drove that home. You know, you can't provide, you can't do things for the people you love, which she just talked about, giving. The biggest joy is in giving. You can't do that without resources.
Yep, I agree. I think it's just that everything is energetic. So whichever format that people will give to, there are a lot of people who have contributed to the world through, like, if I don't know why it pops in my head, but like say a Mother Teresa or somebody who just, there's a lot to give with it in different forms. But yes, I see what you're saying. Like, I do know for sure people who there are people who are not deliberate about money, so then it never comes to them because there isn't enough momentum for it to show up, you know. But there's also people who don't have a resistance, and that's all I'm saying, is that there's some people who it just shows up to because they don't have a resistance to it. Like I know a guy that wasn't, you know, overly after it, and won something like 34 million in a lottery the other, you know, a couple months ago. And it's just like, okay, cool. Like, it's almost just like, yeah, that's great. Like, it doesn't, and it may leave him because he doesn't, depends on how he was pretty good at managing money, but it might not be such a big thing because it's almost like, oh yeah, I've got food in the fridge or whatever. If it's not a big to-dos, if I'm explaining myself, hopefully you guys understand what I'm saying, is sometimes for people, they don't make such a big deal about it. And so there's no resistance to one way or the other. So it's just always there because they allow it in either way.
Right. And then there's still the other people that are so focused on wanting to have it, especially money, that they never get it.
Yeah.
Which
and
gets
love.
them more frustrated. And love.
Yeah, love is another big one. I mean, if you look at all the things out there, what is it? Like, why do some people want the money sometimes for men, it's to get love. When you look at why do people pay lots of money, want money to have, women want to have plastic surgery and Botox, blah, 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 to feel better about themselves so they can attract love or whatever it is. So there's a lot of things that we sometimes get into in order to seek these two things, and they go hand in hand. But I think that what this comes down to with love as well is it's so important to have a balance of give and take energy, because if you're always giving, then you're not receiving. And if you're always receiving and you're not giving, then there's an imbalance as well. So it's important to have that energetic balance in everything. There's always got to be some sort of an equality in what goes out, what comes back in.
Yeah, and giving the opportunity to give someone to, I mean, you may be more of a giver, but you have to be able to give somebody the opportunity to give back. And so you have to receive. You can't just, you know, to give that balance.
So today, right, I have a big, huge, you know, those bins you rent to throw trash out because we were clearing out a whole bunch of stuff. So I rented a bin. It's on my driveway. And I said to the guy, oh, can I actually have it? You mentioned maybe keeping it a few more days or whatever. So he said, yeah. He told us $20 for each additional day. So I said, you said $20 for the additional days. And he said, oh no, it was through text, right? Oh, not for all those days, just per day. And I said, oh, he said, but if you want, the best I could do is $15 per day. And I said, oh, no, I understood it was per additional day. I said, well, if you'd like to do it for $15, I'd be happy, but I would also be willing to, I understood it to be $20. So I'm more than willing to pay you because I don't want to shortchange you. And he said, no, we'll do it for the $15. I was good either way because I was, before the misunderstanding, I was ready to pay the $20 a day anyways. But after that, I feel that sometimes when you have that willingness to pay for things, that it comes back to you in other ways. Because when you're always like, you know, there's some people who are always trying to get more than they're giving. It balances out where you least expected. You'll get whatever it is that you've sort of taken more of, it'll balance out in some other area of your life.
And we're going to see that play out on Thursday. Exactly. You know, somebody that's just a taker and always has been and never gives. So and I'm not just talking about financially, but even kindness or anything. And it's all related. You can't just say, well, I'm really, really great and in love, and then have your finances out of whack, because it's related. And people just don't understand that. They think everything is like a la carte, and it's
Yeah.
not. And if you're, you're angry or whatever. So,
Well,
which
even
is
the post that you put out about like how things, if something's moldy, like, with your friends, we talked about who your friends are.
right. Yeah, oh yeah, Cherry posted that this morning, so I grabbed it and shared it to the story.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and it's very much the same with your energy and your vibration. If you're off on your vibration about money, eventually, I always give it like you said, food in the fridge. If one thing's beside the next, eventually that mold's going to jump on and start to alter the vibration of the next thing, and it'll go all the way around. So you have to look at really the goal. That's why I say there's sometimes I just get up in the days and focus on how do I get aligned? Because the rest of it will all go smooth after that, but it's just alignment. And it's easier sometimes to pick the thing that you have the least amount of resistance towards and work with that so that you can elevate everything, right? Think about your bell curve in school, or when the averages, you want the best thing will bring all your marks up. Like, let me do good on art because my math is sucking right now.
right.
There, right? So things like from that perspective. But I think it's important what she said about recognizing that giving and taking, and also that sort of that karmic debt, because a lot of times people get confused with what karma really means, and it really is about balancing out your energetic bank account in terms of the energies of what you've done, what you've given, and what you've received. And when we end up with karma coming around, it's that if you've taken something that's not yours, or you've received more from someone, whether it be compassion or honesty, any of those things, and you have a karmic debt, it will come back to you in some other space in life.
Well, and then that's when she goes into, she said, this attitude of mine, that this idea of that, of course, separates man from his supply, because
Yeah.
he must be in harmony with the thing in order to attract it. Money is God in manifestation, as freedom from want and limitation, but it must be always kept in circulation and put to right uses. Hoarding and saving react with grim vengeance. But I don't think that she means like that you're putting money aside. I think she means like I know people that are just like, I gotta get. It's like, oh, okay, but you wanted that thing, but I'm not gonna spend that $10.
Yeah.
No, I'm not gonna do that. I gotta hold on to that money. And then I'm gonna go out and work some more. And it's like, but don't you understand that just that act of just not spending that $10 really screws you up? Oh no, it
Yeah.
doesn't. I gotta hold on to it.
Yeah, I see it.
And it's like, but there's nothing wrong with saving. I mean,
But it's the balance, right? So, I spoke to my mom the other day, and she's, going on and on, like very much from the scarcity mindset. She's a child of parents from the Depression. And it's just sort of like, how much money do you need, Mom? Like, how much do you need? And maybe we like, because even when I was trying to explain to her, I just got my house appraised, and it came back at a really high figure. And I was telling her, and she's like, well, you still have to save for this and save for that. And I thought, I don't necessarily need that. There are certain things where it doesn't always have to be about, having so much put aside for a problem, especially as you get older. The days that you will have for problems are decreasing, not increasing. So like, that's just the law of order, right? So it's almost as though, where are you stockpiling this money for? What is it going to do for you?
well, you said it, and it's the intention behind why are you saving it? And you just said, your mom said, you need to save because of this problem. You don't know what problem's going to arise. I would say that that's a bad way to operate for saving. Now, if you're
Yeah.
saving because maybe you're saving for your kids' college, which is a great thing, or maybe you're saving because I just love manifesting, and the more I save, the more I feel manifested. You know, your intention is different. But when it's like, oh, I got to put money aside for a rainy day, I got to have money aside for this, you know, that
You're going to have
always
a
seems
rainy
to go.
day. Yeah.
Yes,
Yeah.
you always have your umbrella out.
Well,
Yeah.
that's the thing. And
Always.
bigger your rainy day fund, the more rain you see, because it's like there always seems to be something coming. And I'm like, there's no planning for sunshine. So because she's, you know, my mom's turning 75 this month, and she's just helped my nephew buy a property. And then she's like, I've got, well, your 2 kids and then your other 2 kids. And I said to her, you know, it's not necessary. Like, we have our own capabilities, and it's our life too, and our joy to create for ourselves. But you're making it out like this burden of having to make sure that we all have this, that, and the other. And, you know, not for nothing, but a lot of these kids, they don't want big homes. It isn't their goal anymore to have the big, you know, because they've experienced that lifestyle growing up. So they don't want it because they're like, oh, it's a lot of work to have, just want a small place to take care of. So I think too, it's almost like, when it comes back down to from a place of love, sometimes how we view and our perspective of what love is and what we think it is to mean that what we're doing is out of love. You have to look at, what is the other person who you're offering this love to? Do they want that? That's like taking somebody to, I'm going to take you out for a fabulous dinner, and I'm going to take you to the best steakhouse there is. And you're like, well, I'm vegan. You're like, yeah, that's okay. I want you to know how much I love you. I'm going to take you to the best steakhouse that there can be. And it's like, for you, it's a total disaster because that's not how that's not for you. Right. So I think when it comes down to it with love as well, it's really understanding that it is that you've got to want for the best for that person and what their joy is. It doesn't mean you give overly of yourself. You don't go into a deficit to give to them so they can have happiness, but you offer your support and encouragement and alongside for them, and the blessing, like they say, give the blessing for every man.
Right. I think we might be getting close to the end. But and then she says, all disease, all unhappiness come from the violation of the law of love. Man's boomerangs of hate, resentment, and criticism come back laden with sickness and sorrow. And we talked about that before, the law of karma. But people do make themselves sick. You know, they talk about it all the time. Oh God, I hope I don't get this. Oh, I got to go to the doctor and have this. I got to do this, this, and this. Oh, I can't believe I got that. Well, how can you not believe it? That's all you talk about.
But
Right?
think of it that way too. Other things people say, oh my God, I'm worried sick about so-and-so. Or, you know, like all the things like, oh, it kills me to see this. And you're like, oh, I don't know if you want to do that. Like,
Yeah.
you want to die over it. Are you sure you want to die over it? You know?
Right. Because
And
our words
it's just
matter.
not taking care of the language and your language
Yeah.
and watching what you say.
Because it's also, I mean, it's not like you're going to die on the spot, but the energy out of alignment, the vibration that you offer, and then probably what you start to attract from that lower frequency starts to go at you, and the stress or whatever you're, you know, happening in your body, it starts to bring these things out.
Well, it's like you said earlier about the weight. You know, it's little by little. It's like, you know, probably greasy hamburgers are not really good for you. But, you know, they kill you slowly over time. But I guarantee you that if you were in a restaurant and somebody just bit into that hamburger and just killed over dead, that would probably be the last time you ate a burger. Because it's like, whoa, I don't think I'm going to do that because it was an instant, you know, happening. But when things are slow over time, it's like you build up a tolerance and you get used to it.
Right.
Some people do.
But I think too, you know, when you like I have a client, she messaged me the other day and she said, I just wanted to tell you my doorbell rang today. It was the Amazon delivery and he came with 2 boxes, but I'd only ordered 1. And I said, I think 1 is a mistake. And he checked and he said, nope, it's got your name on it and it's yours and whatever. So she took it, she opened it and it was a dog bed. Now she doesn't have a dog, but she's been wanting to get a dog. And she's also looking at potentially moving. And she said, once I got the dog bed, it made me think, like, am I really ready for the dog? And do I want to maybe wait till I move to my new place before I bring a dog in, whatever? And I said, this is how it goes. The universe gives us time and signs to get clear, to give clarity on what we want and what we don't want. It doesn't just happen instantly like that. So it is a matter of over time and is that level of momentum to bring something into your life. But half the time, we're not paying attention to these things because we're too busy caught up. Like if you look at this woman, she was initially too busy being caught up in what this man did to her. So she couldn't look for the signs of clarity that were coming to her and maybe, use that time for whatever she did during that time frame to elevate herself to love, to bring this relationship into an even exchange. Then that came about for her and then he came back. But I find sometimes too, it's like, it's about momentum and we are so much into instant gratification that if we put it out to the universe on Tuesday and by God, by Thursday afternoon, if that stuff hasn't appeared, we're like, what the heck? Like what's wrong with this? And we start getting all either doubtful or questioning, or the best one's like, maybe it's not for me, or all this kind of good stuff, right? So it's about really focusing with what comes back to you to show you where there's room for you to line things up or strengthen up your momentum. And when it comes down to love, I think people, what ends up happening is people stop and start, they give and they take their love back. And love is a vibration that doesn't work like that.
Yeah.
No, and again, it's not unconditional.
Yeah.
Love in any capacity for spouse, friend, fellow humans should be unconditional.
But
Well,
there's the passage of time though, that, things change, people change. And so
Right.
people, you don't love the same people all the time throughout the whole thing. So you love them for the time that they're in your life. And
Right.
then when they walk through and pass on, you say, hey, I appreciate for what you were there for. And I wish you the best on your way.
That's right. You wish them well.
Right.
Not get out of here, you SOB. I hope you die. I hope you get run over by a truck. That's the kind of stuff.
No, it's
like,
get out of here, SOB. I wish you well.
yeah. And I love you.
And I love you. Gone.
It's like, well, that kind of love we don't need. Priya, you were going to interject.
I was going to
something?
say too, is that it's also about recognizing that, she says it here, every man is where they are. And so there are times where you recognize that people are maybe not where you think they would be, should be, could be. And you just love them where they are. It's like the Abraham example of, you don't go up to a baby and be like, why don't you walk, you dummy? Like, what the heck, right? So there's certain levels of, and that's where I think it comes down to whatever it is. And for me personally, it's like, I think that's what has allowed me to maintain relationships with other people, because it doesn't mean that we hang out all the time. It just means that I have love for you where you are, and, stay where you are. Don't come near me. No, I'm just kidding. But I love you over there.
Right.
But it just means that you recognize that everybody's journey is their own, and whatever they're choosing for themselves, and the way they want to learn their lessons, because not everybody knows you don't have to suffer. Not everybody knows that they recognize the divine light within them when they get up in the morning, to
Right.
even say to someone else, my divine light. You ask a bunch of people like, well, I don't think I have a divine light, or I don't think I'm there yet, or I don't feel it, or I can't see it, or all kinds of things. So it's almost impossible for them to get into that space. When you're talking about like going to court and whatnot, that person is probably just not in a space to even receive where you're trying to operate from, for whatever reason. They're part of they haven't created those learning opportunities in a way that they've taken them and moved from them and evolved from them. So they're going to do it on their way at a later date. You're like, okay, hope that works out for you.
And if
Well-
not in this lifetime, in another lifetime.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And we were, before Carolyn got back on, Freya, we were talking about, the system and about really being focused on relationships. And now when you were just talking, another part of the system is connection, and that's reaching out to new people. But you're not reaching out to people because, oh, this would be a good person that would use my service, or I could sell them something. No, you're reaching out to them because they're genuinely somebody that you would want to be a friend with. That
Yeah.
you would, maybe not, you may not ever meet them physically, but it's like, hey, you look like a cool person. We like kind of the same things. Let's be friends.
Yeah, it
No.
totally is. And I do see that it just feels, I do a lot of those networking groups, and it just feels gross. Like when you're going through a post and somebody's like, oh, who here struggles with, and you already know that they're just fishing for where your problem area is. So I can tell you, and I can sell you how I can fix it for you. And it's just like, no, thanks. For me personally, when I look at some of the other strategies that have been shared with me about doing that, you have to think like, that's just not for me. I'd rather attract the people that I have fun with. I like to have a laugh. I like to, enjoy what I'm doing, even though I may not want to do it. I still like to enjoy whatever it is. So I think there's a level of, again, giving to give and receiving when you're receiving, and also allowing yourself to receive, because that's another thing when it comes down to love, that there are a lot of people who are not able to receive. And so it's like, well, I can give, and I can do that for you, and I can do this, but we're not conditioned to allow people to do for us or help us or whatever it might be, love on us, whatever it is. There are people who can't receive affection. There are people who can't receive help. There are people who can't, receive someone caring for them or doing for them. There are people who can't receive people spending money on them.
Right. Well, let me ask you a question. You were just saying about, and I understand what you were saying about the networking groups, because people are just in there to get my stuff. Now, contrast that with, your friends, we're friends, and then all of a sudden you post something. You say, oh my God, summer's coming, I gotta lose weight, da, 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 da. And I might actually have something that helps. And then in our conversation, I say, hey, Priya, I saw that you posted about, you got to get ready for the summer. I've been using something that, worked for me. It might work for you. That's a lot different. And I mean, are you going to be offended and say, oh, wait a minute? No, it's like,
Yeah.
maybe I'll check it out. I mean, I don't have anything, so don't get fat. So.
No. But it's even like what you have introduced me to, and it's from that perspective where I think as long as when you're offering something to someone, is you respect their right to choose, and there isn't anything personal. I like this, I use this, it worked for me, I've done this, maybe it might work for you. Here you go. If you think you might be interested, let me know. And then I just leave it, because for me too, I feel like, people will choose what they would like to respond to, and they'll when you want something, you don't just leave it, you go for it. If there's something,
Right.
you go up and get it. So I find that there's really sometimes people end up doing a whole lot more than they need to, and it creates awkwardness sometimes that is unnecessary. Because then when there's that, constant sort of almost like, I want it, but the way that you're coming at me with it makes me not want it now.
Yeah.
Right. Well, that's like when I said I was in Missouri to Carolyn. I mean, if I would have been closer, I might have called her and said, hey, I'm actually in the area. You want to grab something to eat? And, she might have said, well, hell no. I want
Yeah.
to go out and get
You're like
something
my
to eat.
I wouldn't have
Facebook.
said hell no. I would
No.
have said no,
You-
but I wouldn't have said hell no.
No, but I just deal with you Sunday nights. That's it. But no, or she might have said, well, actually, it's perfect timing because I just got back from Branson. You know, I had to go down here for this other court reporting thing. Yeah, let I'll come by and we'll get some, and that's it. It's
Yeah,
not like, Carolyn, you have to do it. Because if
I
you
know.
don't do it, I'm going to be sad.
There's also, from the perspective of, people will say they don't want to ask because they're afraid to get rejected when it comes down to love. Oh, I'm really, and then Carolyn, who knows? And you get there and you realize you're just down the street. Oh, I wish you should have. Why didn't you call me? Why? And then it's like, oh, well, I didn't want to. It sounds like you don't want. There's so many things when it comes down to it. So I think it's just about recognizing, your own space and capacity for giving and receiving, and have that awareness around it and grow as you go, because especially when it comes down to abundance, if you have trouble balancing your giving and receiving abundance can be real tricky, because I see a lot of people, over givers anonymous should be a thing, because there's so many people these days that give way too much, and whether it's giving too much out of and from an unhealthy perspective or from a healthy perspective, but giving too much. And when it comes down to it, they don't know how to receive. So when it's their turn, it's almost like if something's pouring out of something, it can't be receiving something.
Right.
Yeah.
Where are you going to put it? If you just keep emptying your cup, how's anybody going to fill it when you're down? It's just going
So it's constantly ending. And also, if you're always like, even like talking, if you're always talking, you can't listen. So there's different things that when it comes down to it, that there's a time you have to recognize, okay, I've done this, now I'm going to let this happen. And when you operate like that from love in your vibration and allowing it to just come through, it's going to balance itself out. So however you do it, it's going to come back. If you do it in doubt, it's going to come back in doubt. If you do it, in faith, it's going to come back in faith. So it really just comes down to it. And you look at the examples in the book about, the people that, the way that they were mindful of it, or the way that they turned things around, it did come back the way that how we put it out is what they got back. So the woman who said she didn't care about her husband, I will say this, I didn't care for the description that she gave about the husband and how she should have done this and spoke about the husband this way and been willing to, I was like, oh, please. But anyway, I think it comes from a perspective of, appreciation. And that's what I think was missing. I think that's all that really needed to be said there. She gave a lot, but in terms of appreciating what you do have. And if you don't want something that you have and you don't appreciate it, then let it be somewhere where it can be appreciated. It's no different than something in your home. We have things that are trash that we're clearing. We have things that I had 4 beanbag chairs and I listed them up on Facebook, and within an hour they were sold. And I've got women sending me pictures of their baby in the chair. Like, my baby loves the chair. I don't appreciate the chair anymore. I thought maybe somebody else would. And so we allowed it to go somewhere else and be appreciated. And people are the same, no matter how we think about them or not. I think people are the same. I might think somebody that was in my life, I can't appreciate them. I don't have that appreciation for them. Somebody else thinks they're fabulous.
Right.
Exactly. And which flips on the other side. She says, people are sometimes filled with remorse for having done someone an unkindness, perhaps years ago. So if the wrong cannot be righted, its effect can be neutralized by doing someone a kindness in the present.
Yep.
This one thing I do, forgetting those things which are behind and reaching forth unto things where are before.
Which are
Sorrow, regret, and remorse tear down the cells of the body and poison the atmosphere of the individual. And a lot of people do that. They worry themselves into sickness. I mean, all the time. And I mean, I don't know what more to say about that. Can't believe it, that we actually got to the end of the book. So man is his brother's keeper in thought. And every man should know that the thing he loves dwells in the secret place of the Most High and abides under the shadow of the Almighty. There shall be no evil befall thee, neither shall any plague come nigh thy dwelling. Perfect love casteth out fear, and he that feareth is not made perfect in love. And love is the fulfilling of the law. But love is important. But love is gratitude. Love is appreciation. Love is kindness. Love is helpfulness. Love is, reciprocation, communication, intuition, inspiration,
Acceptance.
acceptance. Yes. You can't, yes, because to love somebody is to accept them.
Yeah, and I think that's the thing when it comes down to it is everybody deserves, like, look at it this way, because I'm sure we all have someone in our lives that drives us batty. But if I were to say to you, do you believe everyone in this world deserves love and to be loved? And I'm sure we're all going to say yes. But we say that, but then when it comes down to it and someone does something that's not pleasing or that we're in agreement with, then we revoke it through our behavior. And I think that that's what's most important. Like, when you look at it, there's no one in this world that doesn't deserve to be loved, no matter what hideous crimes they may commit or what level of hatred. Everyone deserves to receive love. And oftentimes it's because of that lack of receiving love that they project these types of things.
Exactly. Any thoughts on that, Carolyn?
No, I agree. But there are times that, okay, if I can't give that love because it's just not lining up, then you have to go somewhere else. And when it says, everybody, it's so man is his brother's keeper. Of course, that's a sexist comment, but people just have to go on. She isn't as bad as Waddles is, but anyway, bad. You've got to be your own keeper. I can't be my brother's. I've got 5 brothers, so I mean, I'm not, my brother's keepers. They've got to be their own keepers. It's just I'm not taking that responsibility on me. So I disagree with that. I can keep them in high thought. I can keep them in, wish the best for them and stuff like that. But they are responsible for all their decisions and choices.
Of course.
And I think that's what she means by that. I think that however you would keep yourself in thought is how we should keep others in thought, or however, so I think from that perspective, I don't necessarily think it means that, we have to go out and take care of every single person. But I think that also when we go back to that divine light, that, I salute the divine light in you. Saluting the divine light in someone is similar to being someone's keeper, because you're keeping them in the mindset of their divine light. I know you'll get there. I know you'll find your way. I know you'll be successful for the way that you want to be successful. I trust that you will be as well as you want to be. It's not necessarily our idea of how we might want to be kept, but I think that if we keep everyone's, like, I notice it a lot with people, you can just tell that they just need a hug. I often look at people and I'm like, who hugs you? Like, come here, who hugs you? Does somebody hug you in your life? Because come here, I'll hug you. Because when you see, Amma, the hugger, have with lines down 10 blocks to get a hug from a woman that travels the world to hug, it's just, there's a lot of people who have not been taught how to love themselves. They've been taught to some degree that they're unlovable. And then as we go through life, they'll find other people to validate that message for them, because that's what they vibrate at.
Yeah.
Right. Well, my father's like that. Like when I tell my father, I love you, it's like, kind of like, I know, just don't talk about it. We don't talk about those things. It's like, well, what happens if something happens? He had surgery the other day, not a big deal, but they put him under. Before he went to surgery, I told him I loved him, just not because I thought something was going to happen, but what if it did? And the last thing you did was Nothing.
But you know what? I think, and this is a really basic example, but when someone sneezes and you say bless you, right? I mean, I do. So sometimes someone will be in the store and they'll sneeze and I'll say bless you. And my kids will be like, Mom, they can't hear you. And I go, they don't need to. The blessing, it's the vibration of it. So sometimes that's what I'm saying is we receive things a certain way than other people. So just even if you were to think in your mind, oh, I love you, Dad. He doesn't have to audibly
Hear it,
hear.
right.
Because and if that's the case, in some ways, that's more that you would want to hear it from your kids or from your people, like that if you were having surgery,
Right,
probably.
but even me saying it to him is a selfish thing because I want to know that he heard me say it. So it's
Yeah,
more satisfaction for me than it is for him.
right. That he could come back and say to you, yeah, we don't talk about that. Okay, good, we're good. Check and check, we're done here.
Right? But that's like the awkward huggers. You go to give somebody a hug and they're like, it's like, what are you going to do to me? It's like,
Yeah.
just come over here. Yeah, right. Wait a minute. Can't do it. I'll just stick it in that one. Oh, whatever. But yeah. So do we have anything else? I can't believe that after it was so difficult to get this all together,
True.
but it was actually a really good call.
It was a good call.
And yes, and we actually got through the entire chapter. Usually we bounce around and we're still like on chapter 3 of 30 pages.
None of these
And it's
chapters are
like,
30 pages. Come on.
well, I know 7 of
Yeah.
30 pages.
Usually on page 2.
I think with this one, though, this particular chapter, it's very relatable. Like there's a lot to offer. Sometimes when we read chapters, there are instances in our lives, but it's sometimes a little more conceptual than this is.
Right.
When I brought the book, or I had the book and I had read it before, but I had the complete works of Florence, and I wanted to share this with Priya because I marked it. So I'm reading both chapters, but the one on, we had earlier talked about hope, and you had said something about hope not being, but anyway, here's her definition. Hope looks forward. Faith knows it is already received and acts accordingly.
Yeah.
So, and when I saw that, I marked your name for it just to say, okay, when you called me out on hope, you were on hope is just a little wishy, So I did remember that. So, but I liked how she worded it. So I wanted to share that with you.
I love that. And it's so funny. I have these 3 little candles from the dollar store. I think it's believe, hope, and faith. And it took me a long time to be like, which order, like just to stick them up on the shelf to be like, ooh, which way should they go? What comes first? I think I have it like believe, hope, and faith.
Well, I would say the hope is the start. That's the desire. The belief is knowing that it's possible, and faith is sticking with it even in the absence of it. But you know that it's done.
Yeah.
So,
And this one and Waddles both talk about faith a lot. You have to act on faith. You have to, the active faith, and we touched on that last week too. You have to have active faith and go forward. So, they're very strong in those.
Well, I think it really is. It's about trust, right? Having faith is very similar to using the word trust. And if you don't trust in your desire coming through, or whatever it is that you're having faith in someone, in yourself, what have you, then you're vibrating from a place of lack of trusting. So, and we can only deliver experiences to verify that. So I think it really just comes down to like, I know I can do this, or I know this can happen, or I always just like to kind of put it out there, who's going to bring me this, or who's going to be this person, or who wants to work with me the way that I want to work, whatever it might be, and just find them and have faith that they'll they'll hear me, whether I say it out loud and they hear me, whether they hear it vibrationally, it'll come along.
Excellent.
So I know we jumped right in to make sure we had enough time, but I just wanted to tell you guys because I was so excited. I just was redoing something to do with my mortgage, and they sent an appraiser out to do my house, and they appraised it at $2 million, you guys.
Wow.
I was dying. I was like, no. I was jumping up. See how I did that? I was jumping because I was like, what? When it was last appraised, it was like $1.3 million 2 years ago. But the way the markets are right now, because from the bank, it's different than if a real estate agent, they go by what's current in the market, but the bank is sort of where it's a little bit more verifiable. So I was just like, whoa, because that's abundance, that's
That is abundance. Yeah.
$1,000 in 2 years.
That's great. That's terrific. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Amazing.
Amazing. And I didn't have to do much for it, but live here and take care of it, which has been a joy.
Got a new bar in the basement.
Yes, I do.
You're fixing things up.
Yeah.
Fix things up.
See?
So
You're on your way. You have licensed dogs now. They're legal.
Dogs.
Not illegal aliens living in Canada.
Nope. It's all coming along.
Yes. So, well, I guess that's it unless you have anything else.
no,
I think we did well.
that was a good ending right there.
Okay. If not, well, I look forward to Bree. I should see you Tuesday and Wednesday if you're not busy with your schedule. And Carolyn, we will meet back next Sunday. I know we message during the week too, so something pops up. So, but I appreciate, oh, there's Dr. Seuss again. Did you drag him in from the other room or you have another one?
No, I had to change to a different computer, and this is my Dr. Seuss computer.
Okay, because in the other one, he's facing a different way in the other.
Over there. In my
Oh, is it the same Dr. Seuss?
Yes.
Same Dr. Seuss, yes. I only need one.
Oh, okay.
It would be hoarding. Who needs to hoard 2 Dr. Seuss's? Come on.
It's like a Beanie Baby craze.
I don't know. And now that he's been banned, I really want to keep him. So I'm
Yeah,
sorry.
for real. I was sorting out things in my basement. I found all the Dr. Seuss books I had for the kids. I'm like, keep it